All right, this is another update from the Ropecraft. My name is Great Answer. I am the managing director of Ropecraft, and I have with me the PTBNL.
PTBNL. I
Yes.
was very excited by that.
If you saw us post the schedule, we had a few classes that were being offered by the PTBNL, which stood for Presenter to be Named Later. And now we're going to name her. Our presenter is Shay from San Francisco. She runs Remedial Ropes, remedialropes.com. You do amazing self-suspension stuff, amazing performances.
Aw.
I mean,
Flattery will get you
in
everywhere.
fact,
Ooh.
I have in here, today you did this really awesome, what was it called again? The Cutthroat Dungeon. Cutthroat Dungeon. And
happened.
as part of the, we had dollars with, there's a picture of her on the money, the fake money they were
Fake
using
money.
to
Thank
sabotage each other and things like that. It was a great thing. And we're using that as a model for our iron rope competition. And I'm hoping we can get you to do that.
Of course.
But we've just been talking about the other things we want you to teach. So now I know you've got a lot. You're doing a few things here at Dark Odyssey Surrender.
One or two.
But let's see if you can remember what we just talked about. What kind of classes are you hoping to offer at Ropecraft?
Brilliant. Well, I'm very excited for an opportunity to be able to offer a more advanced self-suspension class, which is not something that I've seen a whole lot of out there. And I myself have never been to a self-suspension class because they haven't been really offered. I haven't had a chance.
They're few and far between. Yeah.
They're few and far between. So it's something that I'm really passionate about. I do all the time, and
yes,
I do get a little bit of, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I get a little bit of imposter syndrome about teaching.
Oh, really?
About teaching suspension in general, and especially self-suspension. I think there's this feeling that like the rope gods will come down and like you
They
are
will
ready
lecture you, yes,
to present, and I'm like, well, the rope gods didn't come, but I do this all the time and people keep asking me.
And you keep doing it well, yes. That's the way it works.
I think that's the way it works.
So we're talking about doing this, and you say advanced. What are the things that would make it a more advanced class?
I think one of the things would be if we didn't have to cover the 101 stuff, because we know that we have some prerequisites in place. Right. So we've talked a little bit about having a situation where we could certify people beforehand, have some sort of system so that, we do this all the time where we list prerequisites, but you're always going to have people who didn't really understand the prereqs. I thought that I knew something that I don't actually know, and it's a very frustrating situation for everyone when you're in a class that is not the right level for you,
right?
Or you have, as a presenter, people that it's just not their level.
And a lot of times at events, the way that they will get over that, usually on the rigger side, is they'll say, okay, we're going to have this class. We want to make sure you know these things, so we're going to have one class where we teach just these things you need to know, and then we'll have the advanced class. And if you want to go to the advanced class, you have to go to this first class. And that's frustrating if, as a rigger, you already know that stuff. You're going to a class, you're missing out on something else, and you're spending more time doing something that maybe you already know upside down and sideways. No pun intended.
Absolutely.
So we're going to kind of do a hybrid where we will have a class where you will teach the harnesses that are needed for there. We also have, another big surprise announcement. We just found out today that we are also going to have topologists at Ropecraft. And you were recommending topologist's upline management class, right?
Indeed. I think that would be fantastic to have. And so then the idea would be that people can either take the prereq class on site weekend.
Right, the harnesses class and topologist's upline class.
So that people have all the basic building blocks in place and then come to the self-suspension class.
Right.
And we would move from there.
Right. Or if you already know these harnesses, and we will have YouTube videos of the harnesses, and we'll have very specific things on what you need to know. If you think you've got it, then we're not just going to take your word for it. Not that we don't believe you, but we want to make sure this class is all set. So what's going to happen is Shay is going to talk to people that she knows travels to different events, like me, probably topologists, various other people, maybe Evie Vane or somebody that you know, and then show them what needs to be known and like how fast should they be able to tie the harness in order to make it adequate. So I'm not saying, I'm not putting on the spot right now, but I'm saying that the way the prereq will work is that you will have said, you need to be able to tie this harness within 5 minutes, and it has to pass these 3 safety checks.
Sure.
And all that will happen to the prereq is that I'll have a spot, I'll say, I'm doing prereqs, And if you show up at, say, my hotel room at some event, then I'll be, you'll come in and I'll say, okay, do the harness, and I'll set up the timer. And if you do the harness and the timer and you pass, then I give you a little certificate, and you're in the class, in the advanced class. Or you do it, and I'm like, oh, it's a little slow, or oh, that was fast enough, but you missed these 2 spots. Go back and work on it. Then you can try again later on. Mm-hmm. There will also be a time set aside at Ropecraft before the classes that you can just come in and say, yep, I know the stuff. Here, I'm going to do my 5-minute harness, whatever how long it takes, and take care of it. So basically, you have a chance to do your homework beforehand and come to Ropecraft and get your prereqs done. You can get your prereqs done before Ropecraft if you happen to come to a Shay certified instructor.
It sounds so fancy. I'm sure there's going to be other classes that are going to be using this system, though.
I hope so. Yes, that's the thing. We're trying out a new system basically because of the fact that this is something that has come up a lot among instructors and presenters and event organizers. Because it is frustrating when you say you have prerequisites and you have people who don't do it, and you have to tell them to leave, and then somebody else might have missed their spot in the class. Yeah, so we're trying something out. We're trying out something new.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because it can be such a frustrating situation. Or as a presenter, you're trying to, help someone along who maybe doesn't know the prerequisite, and somebody else who's more advanced is very frustrated, and you feel like trapped because how do I help this person to make them have a good experience while letting this advanced person have a good experience? And it's just like, so much. Yes. So, but yeah, the idea being teach it at the class, at the conference, have a pre-rep class, but you can test out of it. We'll have YouTube videos if people want to watch them beforehand. And then at the actual class itself, we can really focus on the meat of, doing this and getting people in the air, having them run through some sequence. It's going to be really fun.
Exactly. And what's the other class you're going to teach?
I'm going to teach cock and ball bondage.
Yes, and I have been in that class. In fact, the person who was my partner in that class you taught at FAPCon saw me again at the second FAPCon, and we had a nice little reunion. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it is a great class. It's a lot of fun, and I'm glad you're doing that one too. That definitely is sorely needed.
I'm excited.
Again.
It's a bit of fun. It's nothing too serious.
Yeah.
And I was very impressed to get to see your cock tied up. So.
Oh well, it's no big deal. Get it. So, one last thing about going back to the self-suspension for a second, and that is, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I don't mean to objectify you, but does somebody have to have abs like yours in order to do self-suspension? Because if so, there's going to be a lot more preparation. How can somebody physically prepare for a self-suspension class?
I think that's a fantastic question. Having the rope basics, of course, is one thing. In terms of physically being prepared, so people think it's a lot of upper body strength, which it isn't. It looks like it is, and it absolutely is not, because I cannot do a single pull-up or push-up. I can't do a single one. And I can still do all of the fun self-suspension things that I want. So in terms of physically preparing in that sense, if I was going to do any exercise, I would do plank. The plank where you're on your elbows and just building that core strength. And if you can do that a few times a day and work up to where you can maintain a plank for a minute or so, I think that will serve you very, very well. So because one of the sequences I would like to do, you'll be starting out with just your feet and chest tied, and you do need some core strength to maintain that and keep your hips up. So I would work on core strength more than anything. And also just building up your tolerance to rope sensations, because
pain. It hurts.
It hurts.
It does.
And it's like any type of sensation, and it took me a long time to figure this out as a bottom, is that it's an acquired taste. You really have to build up your tolerance over time. It's like spicy food, right? You don't start out loving the extra spicy hot chilies of doom. You really have to work up to it, and your body learns that you're not going to die when you eat it, and that your tongue isn't really on fire. And after you learn that, then you can tolerate more and more and more. So just spending some time hanging out in hip harnesses and learning how they feel, and getting your body to learn that I'm not going to die.
Yes, and you learn it not to mind that it hurts so much. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and once your body can register that nothing really is, I'm not being harmed, nothing really tragic is happening, then you can process and be able to maintain a tie a lot longer, which I think is a lot of what self-suspension, for me at least, has been about, is just learning to tolerate those sensations.
Right. When you are doing self-suspension, are you topping or are you bottoming?
Am I topping or am I bottoming? Ooh.
I think there's a perception within the rope community that the people who do self-suspension are bottoms who are tying themselves, which is really strange because if you think about it, it makes just as much sense that it's a top who is tying up themselves. And I know there are a few tops who do self-suspension as well, but what do you use it change for you? Do you have a sensation? Because you switch.
I do switch.
So.
I'm a switchy switch, aka slut. That is very true. I would say that, first off, I think self-suspension is an awesome tool for learning as a rigger.
Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting to me that, like, in all of our, starting on the bottom and experiencing things and, the leather path, starting as a slave, blah, 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 I don't hear anybody much proposing that people learn to rig by self-rigging, which...
Well, I have advocated demo bottoming for suspension classes for tops because I learned the most, I think, out of any suspension class at one of Max in Seattle's classes that I was one of his demo bottoms. And being up, I was like, oh my God, that's why the hip lines are important. This makes so much sense now. So yeah, I definitely have advocated that. But yeah, you're right. It's not a path that people usually tend to take.
Yeah, and I wish more people would, and I think it will appeal to a lot of people as a tool for learning as a rigger. It is completely invaluable in my opinion. Different bodies are different, and so me learning to suspend myself doesn't mean I can suspend you with the exact same toolkit, as it were. So that can sometimes
abs do not look like hers.
So sometimes that's even a problem with learning on yourself and then trying to extrapolate to other people. But I think there's a lot of things that would be tied a lot differently if more riggers bottomed. That's my opinion.
Wow. That's a whole other topic I think we can get into.
So am I topping or bottoming? I don't see it as either one. To me, it's almost more like when I've taken circus arts classes or when I've, done aerial silks or something. It's really more of just an experience of being in your body in the sense of doing something dynamic, doing dance, doing anything like that, and that's what it more is for me.
Nice. And is it a internal kind of a sensation, or are you going out are you trying to perform for them? Do you self-suspend alone?
I make sure someone's always home. There's always somebody watching me, even if that's a whole different story. But I would say I'm a definite exhibitionist slut, and I love being on the stage. So anything I can do that I'm performing, I'm kind of all about it. So that's definitely was one of my motivators when I was learning to do it.
That makes sense. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so you have something else to look forward to when you're coming to Ropecraft. Go to ropecraft.bpt.me. Which is where you can register. The FetLife Ropecraft group is very active, and you can also go to ropecraft.net, where we will be adding your information to the presenter page as well, and doing things like that. So hope to see you there. Thank you so much. We're so glad to have you.
Yay, I'm super excited.
And thanks for taking your time out of this Dark Odyssey Surrender event.
Of course. Happy to.
Thanks.
Yay.